Today's episode is coming to you thanks in part to Bike Pittsburgh and their Open Streets PGH events. And big news, the next Open Streets is running through Lawrenceville and the Strip District on Sunday, July 27th. This 3.5-mile car-free route takes you from 13th and Smallman all the way past Allegheny Cemetery. And when the roads are made car-free, this new sense of community connection happens. There is so much to do along this stretch, and you can join thousands of people who are going to be biking, walking, and rolling through the route and supporting local businesses along the way. See the route at openstreetspgh.org and follow at openstreetspgh.
CityCast Pittsburgh is supported today by the Heinz History Center and their newest exhibition, Pittsburgh's Hidden History. It is a cornucopia of curiosity, a magical menagerie of memory, and a little bit of this and that. There are flowery couches, relics from Kennywood, even a collection of shivs. If you listen to this show a lot, you know we are loving this. It is truly mind-boggling to see how the curators brought together such a wide range of rarely seen artifacts to tell Pittsburgh stories like never before. To buy your tickets and learn more, visit HeinzHistoryCenter.org. Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, if you live in the county, your taxes went up this year, just a little bit, to try and help pay for all of the services that we all rely on. But that extra money is not going to be enough. A recent controller report says Allegheny County finances are unsustainable long term, especially with all the looming budget cuts coming from the federal government. Today, we are with the county's top official talking about what it's been like to try and plan around all that chaos, some stuff that's gone right, some honest-to-God wins here, and one idea that she spotted in Wisconsin that she really wants to bring to Pittsburgh. And stick around after the interview for a segment sponsored by the Heinz History Center about their newest exhibit. It's Thursday, July 10th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. I'm with Allegheny County Executive Sara Innamorato. Thank you for having us in a new room downtown. This is fun.
Oh my gosh, thanks for coming downtown again.
Let's start with some happy stuff. Some county wins, maybe 500 and 500 just celebrated its first birthday. That feels kind of momentous. Are you excited?
It really is. We still have till October until day 500, but we've housed over 300 people across hundreds of units. And, these are units that wouldn't be available but for us bringing the table of people together to design this program. And it's going to live on beyond day 500, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. So you get to keep it going then.
Absolutely. A lot of what 500 and 500 was yes, like bringing units online that were offline in the Housing Authority's portfolio. It was about working with developers to set aside units for people who are in our shelter system. But a lot of it was actually streamlining bureaucracy and making it work better for both property owners and for the people who were using our shelter system and were in need of a safe, stable, and affordable home.
And I know the goal is, 500 affordable units in 500 days. And units are complicated, but I did notice that you're getting really close to 500 people housed. I realized that wasn't what the number was supposed to represent, but that still feels like kind of an extra cool 500,
Yeah. Well, when all is said and done, we will have more than 500 people housed because some of these folks are couples or they're friends, they're roommates, they want to live together. So, not every unit is a studio unit. There are some that are multi-bedroom. So some people are moving in together, which is also nice, right? Because they get to keep their community unit together.
Yeah. I mean, what would you say that you or, the county folks, because I know it takes a big village to keep all of this going, to connect all the dots here, have learned from this process? Because our city's been talking about affordable housing and how to figure it out for a while, and the county has figured out at least this one tiny piece of it.
And that's the point. It is one tiny piece of the overall menu of options that exist to help our housing crisis and to make sure that everyone has a right to housing. So the thing that I've learned from this process is that really government can be a force for good in people's lives. I think when they interact with the government, they get really frustrated. And we're saying like, actually, think about all the bureaucracies that are at work that are working towards bettering the commons and making people's lives better. And that given the current structure, which is imposed upon us by the state and federal governments, that we can still find creativity and innovation. It just takes intentionality. So when we bring different levels of government together, like the city and the county, when we bring unusual funding sources, when we bring private developers, when we bring people in the community who are housing advocates, when we bring unhoused people to the table and partner them with human services and economic development across, people across departments, we actually can design programs that ultimately prioritize and benefit people in the community.
I mean, have there been any unconventional lessons along the way, would you say? Like, is there a type of unit that works better, or like a systems thing that maybe presented itself? I don't know.
Well, I think, in the true spirit of Allegheny County, where we have 130 municipalities and hundreds of, fire departments, police departments, and 43 school districts.
I think I know where
we
this is
also
going.
have 3 housing authorities. And so really where it worked best was really just getting the 2 housing authorities, the city and the county, to work together. And
shocking.
I know, it was really cool that, this was able to happen. And now, people who own property are having a better experience interacting with the housing authorities. We're putting people in units in a much quicker fashion, and it's ultimately not costing a whole lot of money. When you're talking about building a new affordable housing unit, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars to build new. When you're talking about preserving one, you're talking about maybe a little over $200,000. But these are units that already exist in our portfolio that were offline. And so it's like, what are we doing here? Let's put the thousands of dollars that we need to bring that one online and get a person in there. So really doing an inventory on our assets and saying how do we make this work efficiently?
Yeah. What's the average stay for someone in one of these units?
So this is long-term housing for individuals. So
but it's similar to a rental in terms of how people might understand it.
Yeah. So, these are folks who, depending on what stage of life they're in, this may be their final stop on, their journey on housing. So, this is about creating long-term housing opportunities for individuals and families. And it's working because 100% of the families that have gone through the program are still in housing, and 97% of the individuals who are placed through this program are still in their housing unit, which is great, right? Because the idea is getting people stability. And, maybe this is their final stop. Maybe this is just a layover until they do the next thing, right? Maybe they take advantage of a first-time homebuyer program. Maybe they move into another neighborhood. We want to be able to design a system that works at scale, but can be catered to the individual.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of first-time home buying, I know you've also launched something with that. I find everything about how to purchase a home here in our region so complicated, and I've done it, and it's horrible.
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah. Why was this program and kind of tackling the concept of ownership so mission critical for you?
Oh, man. Well, our approach to creating housing for all is an all of the above approach. And that involves getting folks out of our shelter system into safe, stable, affordable housing in 500 and 500. It's also creating more home ownership opportunities, because those are individuals who grow roots here, who are less likely to move, who can build a family and ingrain themselves in a community. And it was really important for us to create a product that worked with middle income Allegheny County residents who want a little piece of that American dream. And First Home Allegheny is our commitment to making that happen. It's, a few $1 million we put aside to help people with all of the closing costs that come along with purchasing your first home.
And sometimes that's the hardest piece. And the Pittsburgh region, like you're supposed to have hand money to like sweeten the deal, and you have to pay for closing costs, and sometimes the down payment is like more than you think you can handle. It's just a lot of tough stuff to swallow all at once.
Exactly.
When you also have to like move, like just the concept of moving, and sometimes across neighborhood or like municipality, it like feels like switching your personality.
Yeah, exactly. And we're also working in a market, right? So these individuals who are maybe lifelong Allegheny County residents who are renters who want to buy a home because they, want to grow roots, they want to find stability, maybe they want to grow their family. They are also competing with out-of-town private equity investors. So we've seen, Pitt did a report last year where more of these entities are coming in and they're purchasing single family homes and then they're renting them. And so they're reducing the opportunities for home ownership. So we can't regulate that directly because I don't have the authority as county executive. Maybe if anyone who's at the state or federal government who wants to change that, great. Or do something about it, that'd be awesome. But what we can do is equip individuals with, faster access to capital so that they can close on a home, so they can buy these units and they aren't going to out-of-town investors.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a complicated problem to try to swallow, right? Like we need growth. We want folks to move in, but having companies do it or folks that, they come in and buy 6 houses and they rent a bunch of them. Like it's not a bad thing necessarily, but it's just, I don't know that it's helping everybody. I don't know. Like it's a hard calculus.
Well, you're talking about, right, where the model of, a landlord relationship was like, it was still someone who lived in your neighborhood. So they still were invested in some way because they either lived in the neighborhood or the neighborhood over. But now you're talking about entities that are in New York City or in another metro, and they're just focused on how much profit they can extract from the homes and not how they can build community. And, so it's not necessarily the ownership of an investment property, but it is about who's owning it and whether they have a vested interest in bettering the commons here.
I mean, I know it's probably a long process, but have you had folks try to take advantage of the program so far? First Home Allegheny?
Yeah, we have. We've had, I think, 17.
Checks notes over here.
We'll send numbers, but last update I got, it was 17. But more than that now, we have a lot of, so for us to make this program successful, we need to partner with banks because they have to provide the mortgage and the underwriting of the property. So what's been great is that we have a lot of banks that are working with us and they're like, we're going to be out of this money so quickly because there is such a demand for it, which is great. So it's
great, but it's also
beneficial all around.
It's wild, right? Because we keep making all these lists about how livable Allegheny County is and how you can still afford a home in Pittsburgh. And thank you. I appreciate that accolade. But also people keep coming here.
Yeah.
And I want them here. I want new folks to come to town, but also like it gets more expensive with new folks too.
Yeah. And so this is about having an economic development strategy that invests in the people and the businesses that are already here. Because sometimes we can think about what's outside of the borders of Allegheny County and outside of Pennsylvania and say, how do we attract people here? And that's, like you said, absolutely necessary. But like, what about the people here? What about the people who've called this place home for generations that want to stay here and are proud to be a Yinzer and know all there is to know about Pittsburgh? How do we make sure that we're caring for our neighbors in the big spectrum of our economic development strategies?
I'm going to borrow your own words here. I heard you say recently that Yinzer is a strong brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of that strategic planning. I know you're also undertaking a county-wide comprehensive plan. We have not done one in a while. Why is this a useful tool for you?
So it's very cool because we haven't done a comp plan as a county since 2008, which is also the year I graduated from Pitt, H2P.
I'm sure that was top of mind for you at 22-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. So things have changed, right? The county has changed. And our comp plan, I think the simplest way to think about it is that it's our roadmap to the future. So what are we doing? How are we aligning things like land use and zoning and targeted development around transit corridors? And how are we looking at all of the quality of life issues from outdoor recreation to housing to arts and culture, and saying, how do we bring all of those things together across the public sector, the nonprofit, the private sector, to say, here's our shared vision for sustaining our region and growing it, and doing it in a way that's extremely intentional, that aligns resources, and ultimately results in shared prosperity. Because growth for growth's sake is not going to be shared by everyone. It takes intentional relationship building, intentional policies to ensure that money that we put out our door into communities and that comes in from the private sector goes to benefiting the most amount of people. And so this allows us to use the comp plan as a platform for that strategic visioning.
So what comes next then? I understand the public can start to get involved kind of around August, September. How long does this take? When might you start to try to put some piece of it into action?
Yeah. So, county government, we have to walk and chew gum at the same time. So we're still executing, we're still taking action every day and deploying new programs like First Home Allegheny. But this is an 18-month process that allows us to engage people. So whether you're a resident, whether you're a business owner, whether you work in downtown Pittsburgh or the AK Valley or out near the airport or in the Mon Valley, this is an opportunity for you to say, here's how the county can be a good partner in my neck of the woods or in my industry or in my issue area. So for us, it's a great way to bring neighbors together to say, hey, we actually all really love this place, even if we don't agree on everything. So how do we make this place the best that it can possibly be?
That's going to be so many meetings for you.
It's going to be fun. I'm excited. And, not only are we doing the comp plan, but we're doing the county's first ever climate action plan. So that's layered into this. We're doing a housing needs assessment, which means that we're looking at the entire county and saying, okay, where do we need what type of housing? And then how do we create the conditions and find the resources to build that type of housing? So, it's really an exciting time. I keep calling 2025 the year of planning, and my staff keeps saying, please don't do that because it's boring.
It's not boring. It's like table setting, right?
Yeah.
So that you can enjoy the party later.
Exactly.
I don't know that county government's ever a party. I'll leave that to you.
It is. County government is fun. It's great.
This episode is brought to you by Visibility, an organization helping people who are blind or visually impaired explore all that's possible in their lives. Vision loss doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your independence or stop doing what you love. You just need to do it differently, and that's where Visibility comes in. They take a comprehensive approach to vision care. So they do vision screenings for kids and adults, but also provide transportation assistance, at-home occupational therapy, even employment support. Visibility says they take a personalized and holistic approach so their clients can maintain their lifestyles and keep pursuing their passions. Visit visibility.org or follow them on social media to learn how Visibility can assist you, your loved ones, and your friends.
This episode is supported by Crossover Coliseum. And if you're thinking gladiator fights, naval battles, mythical monsters, you are very much on the right track. Crossover Coliseum is a live gladiator-themed game show, and it's basically a combination of Gladiator, Minute to Win It, and Dungeons & Dragons. Local Pittsburghers will face wild challenges for charity, and you get to vote on the outcome. Besides enjoying the live performance, you also get to test your skill and luck in mini-games, plus sip on some signature cocktails. All of this takes place on Thursday, July 17th at the Oaks Theater in Oakmont. Buy your tickets today on Eventbrite, and you can get a 25% discount with the code DIECAST. That's DIECAST. Learn more at crossovergames.org and make your boring nights history.
Today's show is brought to you by the Frick Pittsburgh Museums and Gardens and their limited-run special preservation tours of Clayton. That's the historic home of Henry Clay Frick. I actually got to take one of these tours recently, and it was fascinating. You learn all about the restoration work that happened back in the 80s as a team transformed Clayton from a family home into a museum. And some of the details are wild. Like, they found the records for the silk drapes that used to hang in Mrs. Frick's bedroom, and were able to get them remade by the same Paris company on the exact same loom as the originals. You also get to learn all about the major exterior preservation project that's happening at Clayton right now. You'll learn why it's so important, how it'll help ensure Clayton isn't ruined by water damage, and how they're doing it, like steaming and scraping all these layers of paint off the bricks so they can find and then match the original color. The Frick's limited-run special preservation tours of Clayton run Fridays and Saturdays at 10:45 a.m. and 12:45 p.m. And they're part of a fundraising campaign that's focused on the care and conservation of Clayton for generations to come. So the ticket price is a donation, and it's fully tax-deductible. Get tour tickets and learn more at thefrickpittsburgh.org.
Let's talk about something that I knock on wood as I talk about this, because I am always hesitant to say that, you know, the numbers like this are a good thing because they represent tremendous tragedy. But our homicide rate as a county is down in an unusual way.
Yeah.
We have not had as many this year as we typically do by this point in the year. June was a tough month. And I know other cities all over the nation are also down. Like, nobody knows exactly what this is.
Yeah.
But, like, is there anything you can point to in Allegheny County that you're like, maybe this is helping?
Perhaps. So for folks who don't know, we had our lowest number of homicides, 31, between January and June, which is the lowest since 2007, which is pretty incredible. And we don't know, right? You hinted at that. We don't actually know what is causing that, but we are investing through our Department of Human Services in violence disruption and intervention. So really thinking about how do we put money into the hands of community-based organizations that understand the dynamics of a community, that understand the tensions, that can build relationships and help head off violence before it happens.
Yeah.
And through those programs also, you know, because they're not coming from the government or a big organization or an outside organization, it's people of the community. There's trust there in saying like, okay, well, why don't we get you on a different path than the path of violence? And, you know, we have to think that that is influencing the positive results that we're seeing, right? And this has been a multi-year investment, and it will continue to be a multi-year investment. And, you know, we'll see how it's worked and how it's impacted these numbers and see if it's sustainable.
I mean, but part of, like, you know, you'd say it's not, you know, a product of the government, but in a way it kind of is, because so much of that is often funded by like Department of Justice grants and things like that come through the federal government. Are you confident that we can keep paying for stuff like that? I mean, I say that like, are you confident that we can keep paying for anything in the next year?
Yeah. So yes, so it is government money that goes to work in the community. So it's not a top-down approach. It's the money comes from the top, but goes into the community,
right,
and they're the ones who build up the right interventions and right systems that work for that community specifically.
But in this moment, like, everything is just, it's kind of chaotic. Like, you never know what program is at risk, what funding is being threatened, they're going to get pulled, what legislation's coming down the pike, executive orders.
I know. It has been a roller coaster ride that I did not buy a ticket to. And it has been kind of, I don't know. I mean, some days defeating, right? When you see an executive order come down from the White House, or, you know, you're looking at what Congress is doing, and you're like, why would you cut a Department of Justice grant that's, you know, making communities safer? Like, what is the logic of that? You know, that seems to be beneficial for everyone, whether you're directly receiving the grant in the neighborhood or not. And, there's been a lot of decisions that have been made at the federal government that really has a lot of us, I think, regardless of your political affiliation, scratching your head and being like, to what end?
Yeah.
Right? Because at the end of the day, these grants are just one iota of like the overall federal spending, but it's seeing big results in our community.
Do you have a dollar figure on like what could be lost for Allegheny County, like just in terms of our budget?
As far as the federal budget?
Well, yeah, like what you receive from the federal government?
Yeah. So we went through a thought exercise when
I don't envy you there.
Yeah. So when the first executive order came out several months ago and it said, hey, we're going to stop all federal grants, we were like, what? That was to the tune of $117 million, like wiped away instantly from the county budget. And, thankfully that didn't happen. But we were like, okay, so this could be a huge impact on us. So
this is a potential new benchmark for what could come.
Yes. And so we've seen kind of picking at the federal government, kind of picking different pots of money to attack at different points. And so some of that has impacted the county directly. Some of it's more impacted partner organizations like Job Corps is an example of that. That an executive order impacting work that we don't directly control, but definitely, we work with that program quite a bit at the county. Right now, we have a reconciliation bill that passed Congress, and it's going to take us a while to really understand the direct impact it has on county finances. We know there are big cuts to Medicaid in that, and when you look at how the county operates and how we fund certain things like the Kane Centers, which is our skilled nursing facilities, which houses, our aging population, people who with dementia, individuals in recovery. We get $45 million from Medicaid for serving those individuals. And so if they take a hit, then we take a hit. And we are a public entity, so we do not have to deliver return to shareholders. Like, we exist for the common good, but we're also provide excellent care at these centers, and we want to continue to provide that excellent care. You're talking about over $450 million that go to County Department of Human Services, mostly for mental and behavioral health. So when you talk about 988 and you talk about, our rapid response for people who are in mental health crisis, like that's Medicaid dollars. And so you may think that you're like, weeding out waste, fraud, and abuse, but what you're really doing is just trying to destroy our public safety net when it comes to helping our seniors and, making sure people can get mental behavioral health care.
And food assistance as well.
Absolutely. So while the county doesn't directly administer SNAP, we will obviously bear the burden of helping individuals find food and nutrition. Like, it would be us partnering with the food bank, making sure that we can support these families. Just because the program goes away doesn't mean the need goes away. People don't magically have money to go to the grocery store. Food doesn't magically appear in their pantry. So, it's going to fall on the community to care for our neighbor.
Yeah, another striking example I saw recently was also some community development money. You were talking to council and saying, these are things that repair sidewalks and help with small projects in municipalities all over our region. That funding could completely go away. We can't even fulfill the requests we have now because everybody wants a little piece of that to help their project.
Yeah.
And what happens next?
So right, we have the reconciliation bill that just passed. That was a lot of Medicaid hits. So there's also just a budget bill that Congress is considering that hasn't passed yet.
We also have a state budget that's kind of waiting on some federal clarity. Like, there's a lot of dominoes in place, and none of them have exactly fallen yet.
I know. And so, but this proposed budget for Congress, it cuts programs like the Community Development Block Grant, which is wildly popular, and it's our economic development dollars. So we get about $14 million, or that's like how much we got last year. And these fund things like sidewalks, road paving, playgrounds.
Fun things like road paving.
I know, like things that are necessary, like stormwater infrastructure, like things that are absolutely necessary for our communities and our municipalities. And this money could go away in its entirety. Like it's cut in the proposed budget. And so, what I've been trying to do is educate the public, again, regardless of political affiliation, being like, here, if this budget passes, then that playground that you wanted in your community cannot be funded because we do not have $14 million laying around at the county to supplement the loss of federal dollars. So, and I think it's hard for people to say, how is a thing that's supposed to happen, like at my community center, linked to the federal government?
It's so complicated.
I
don't shade anybody for not necessarily connecting the dots on that stuff, but
it's just a lot of humanizing what is typically numbers in a spreadsheet.
And a lot of people just don't care. They don't want to know. But they do want their road paved.
Yeah. You want your road paved. You want your bus to show up. You want your homeless neighbors to find housing. You want your kids to be able to go to childcare. You want, you want
emergency services,
swimming pools to be open. You want 911 operators to pick up the phone.
When it floods, you want things fixed.
Yeah, you want small business support. You want your main streets to be vibrant. Like people want these things, and so you have to say, here's what this pays for. If we don't do this, here's what is cut and which things do you want cut? And when you break it down for people, they're like, I actually want all of those things. And so, you kind of begrudgingly win a lot of people over. Some people are just going to be imposed to taxes because they're philosophically opposed to them. I don't know how you pay for society if you don't have some form of taxation, but it's all about also holding ourselves accountable. So yes, it's about educating people about what this goes towards, but it's also about saying, hey, this is your money and we want to be transparent on where it goes and how it's used. And we want to be able to hear you, right? That's why we're doing the comp plan in a way that goes out to the communities. That's why we launched a budget tool so you can kind of get like a tax receipt. So you can see like, oh, I paid this much in property taxes to the county. Where does that go by department?
It's kind of fun to play with. It's online and called Balancing Act. I'm getting a thumbs up over here from your communications department. But it is kind of fun to tinker with that and be like, if you think you can do it better, try to do it.
Yeah. So it gives you the tax receipt, but it also gives you the tools to be able to say like, let's, if I cut money from this department and move it over here, what does that look like? And what do I forgo by doing that, right? If I move money from the parks to public safety, what does that mean about opening up a wave pool? There's consequences for every action. It is a zero-sum game. You're moving money around. You have to cut it from somewhere else.
Yeah, the county does not produce revenue.
Exactly.
The county brings in money and spends the money.
Yes, we do not generate wealth, but we employ a lot of people and we put that money to work in our communities for the common good.
Yeah. I mean, how are you handling things like, largely out of your control, like the Department of Homeland Security has had such an increased presence in our region lately. Mm-hmm. We just got recent, updated numbers about the number of ICE arrests and detentions happening here. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you feel like the county is able to do in these circumstances?
I think the greatest thing we can do is show compassion to our immigrant neighbors. We have a great relationship with our refugee and immigrant serving nonprofits here, and we've done a lot of work to educate the public and the corporate community on the economic impact that our immigrant neighbors have.
I heard you say that we cannot grow, full stop. We don't grow as a region without our immigrant community.
Well, if people look at the census numbers,
the only reason the city grew is because of immigrants.
Absolutely. 100%. We would have lost population. Would not have stabilized. And these are individuals who start businesses at rates higher than native-born individuals. So they're entrepreneurial, they're creating jobs. These are also people who come in and they get degrees at CMU and they fill higher level positions in healthcare and technology.
But now our universities are being pressured as well.
Exactly.
And that's getting, it's so fraught.
It's just going to be bad for our region if we don't continue to say that we are a welcoming place, that we care about our neighbors, that whether you grew up across the river or across the ocean, that like we want you here. And obviously, like if anybody breaks the law, like there's consequences to that, and there should be consequences for the sake of public safety. But what we're seeing now, people being dragged out of courtrooms, people being dragged out of their workplace.
And this isn't hyperbole either. I just want to emphasize that like this is literal. Like you work in the courthouse and it's happening right here.
Exactly. It's happening in our backyard. People are being shackled.
And they're coming for like family court, like simple stuff, some people.
Yes. And what that does is actually, I think what people need to realize is it makes us all more unsafe, because when you have an immigrant, even if they're here with documentation and have a certain like temporary status or visa, they're a visa holder, they may not report something like domestic violence, or they're not going to speak up as a witness if they saw some violent act happen, because they're afraid that by them coming out and testifying that they will get arrested by ICE. And again, that is not making our communities safer. That is just stoking fear and eroding trust between government agencies and the individuals who live in our communities.
Yeah, I was just reading an analysis recently that like of the, I think it was just under 400 people that have been detained so far, less than half have ever been charged with a crime, and just a fraction of those were ever convicted.
Yeah, and we're not seeing them moving in a targeted way and trying to collect people who committed a violent crime and are here to harm people. That's not what we're seeing. What we're seeing is actions that are taking away people's dignity and making us all more unsafe.
To step back a little bit, we keep hearing about how the city and the county, the region needs to grow, that our population, while somewhat stable, is also just like it's not moving, and we need the taxes if we're going to be able to continue as a community in the way that we want to. Like, how do you entice someone to come here right now? What's the conversation like?
You mean someone who's foreign born?
Anyone.
So when I'm talking about Allegheny County, it's really talking about what we have to offer. Right now, we have some great job openings. We have really low unemployment.
Wait, what's your favorite job opening right now?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I have to like look at my phone. I actually have all the stats on it.
What do you think is the
program I just did?
Fun job opening? Like, is it nonprofit head? Is it someone who works for the county?
It's like if you look at the data from our Workforce Investment Board, Partner for Work, I don't know if the stat is still relevant, but it was like for every job seeker, we have 2 job openings. So we actually have a really shallow pool of potential applicants, right? So we have low unemployment, we have a lot of job openings, so we need people to fill those jobs, right? So there's a lot of opportunity that exists here. We are relatively affordable, but we're making sure that we can support people who are here. We're just
I think we're cool.
I think we're very cool.
But you have to make that pitch a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I guess I'm assuming. Do you make that pitch very often?
Yes. So working with, we work a lot with the Allegheny Conference and the Pittsburgh Chamber to say, really sell the region to people who potentially want to move their operations here or
the Allegheny
open up
Conference
an office.
Mostly focuses on like our business community, our labor market.
Right. Because the county doesn't create wealth.
Right.
But we have to encourage growth, right? So we have to make sure that businesses can thrive here, but thrive in a way, again, that results in shared prosperity. So, we are always making the pitch to corporate leaders, both, locally as well as sometimes internationally, that this is a great place to be. And, we're really innovating at the county level, working across departments to say, how do we streamline permitting in a way that minimizes bureaucracy, protects the public health and safety, and also makes it, transparent and upfront for businesses who need to access those permits. So We've also put a lot of money into our economic development department so that we can say, like, we want to be a great partner in helping you settle here and get the workforce that you need.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and just to kind of underscore it, like this isn't arbitrary. Like this is part of the conversation I think that a lot of folks have at least talked about in reference to like the NFL draft, for example, the big party coming in 2026. Before we go, any lessons that you feel like you learned? Because I know you got to be part of the welcome wagon in Green Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, did you learn anything? Did you see anything that like, you're like, okay, that's cool. Because I've heard you say you're not necessarily always a sports person in the Pittsburgh way.
I love sports.
I know.
Sports ball.
But like, is there anything that you saw there that you're like, okay, even for a non-sports person, that is cool. I want that here.
I mean, it was really hard not to get into it because it's just like electric. Like it's just very exciting. I loved that the moment I walked off the plane in Green Bay, that there was like a tailgate. Like they were like, spin this wheel, eat these cheese curds, like take a photo.
Like on the tarmac?
In the airport. Yeah. Like you walked out of the gate and it was there. And I was like, oh, the energy is here. And then like everyone who was part of their chamber and their tourism group, they had bags that they were handing everyone out with like just a taste of all like local Green Bay.
Was our airport authority CEO with you? Like was Christina Casotis there to see that?
She wasn't, but I did talk to her about it. And like, we will do it, you know, instead of a cheese curd, maybe get a pierogi.
I was about to say what travels well.
I think, they're dough pockets.
Pocket potatoes.
Yeah, exactly. So they would be great. So I think just like, how do we create a very Pittsburgh experience the moment people set foot in our region? So it'll be a lot of fun to really show off what we have to offer. So yes, we're a sports city, but we also have great arts and culture. We also have beautiful scenery and wonderful parks. And we have, you know, emerging industries like life science and technology and some legacy ones like, you know, eds and meds and steel making and like manufacturing. So like, you know, come see what we're all about. And we have like some really great people who live here. And I know we're going to be neighborly to the folks who come and make them want to come back and spend their money some more and maybe move here.
Yeah, I mean, that will end there. Like, do you think an event like Oakmont, which we just had, Picklesburgh coming up this weekend, the NFL draft coming up next year, are things like that enough to convince someone, yeah, Pittsburgh, I can see myself living there?
They're part of it. So let's show everyone what Pittsburgh's got to offer.
County Executive Sara Innamorato, thank you very much.
Of course. Thanks for coming over.
And y'all, don't go anywhere. In just a second, we've got a segment sponsored by the Heinz History Center. Executive producer Mallory Falk is chatting with Ann Mataross about the center's new exhibit.
Hey, I'm CityCast Pittsburgh executive producer Mallory Falk here with Ann Mataross, chief historian at the Heinz History Center. Ann, welcome back to CityCast Pittsburgh. It's been a minute.
I know. Thanks for having me today, Mallory.
So our team was very lucky. We actually got to check out your newest exhibit, Pittsburgh's Hidden History. I have been recommending it to everybody. I loved seeing so many Pittsburgh relics. One of my favorites was the old sign from the Beehive Coffee House, RIP. But for anybody who hasn't been lucky enough to check it out, what can people expect from this exhibit?
Well, I hope people come away with it feeling just as you guys do. We want people to come and see more than 300 objects, many of which have never been seen before, that tell great Pittsburgh stories. But as you probably saw, in really fun, whimsical, very different ways. It's a very different type of exhibit for us.
Yeah, what are some of your personal favorite artifacts and curiosities that are on display in the exhibit?
Oh my gosh, they're all like my favorite children. I mean, it's just the whole range of things. I mean, I really love, the shivs from the old jail. Mm-hmm. I love the personal things. You know, Herb Douglas's bronze medal from the 1948 Olympics. I love the teeny tiny watch that has the image of Pittsburgh from 1845 engraved on the front of it. Or, you know, the really iconic things like the guardian lions that greet you as you come into the gallery that used to be at Kaufman's in the Oriental rug department. They're just stunning and mysterious, and there's such a great story with them.
I know that one of the most notable objects that's in the Pittsburgh's Hidden History exhibit is the sleigh that the Biddle brothers used to escape from prison in 1902. So for anyone who doesn't know the story, who were the Biddles and why did their escape make national headlines? Why is it so notable that this is on display in the museum now?
It's incredible that it survived. And you're right. It is a story that like galvanized the country and everybody was talking about it then. And it was is interesting enough that Mel Gibson and Diane Keaton actually made a movie called Mrs. Sophel about it. The Biddle brothers were burglars who came to Pittsburgh. They were part of the chloroform gang. They would break into people's houses or businesses late at night. If somebody was awake or they encountered anyone, they would put them to sleep with chloroform and then they would rob the place. Well, at one point they encountered someone, a fight broke out, they shot that person, and eventually they were captured. They're put in jail, and Mrs. Stoffel is the warden's wife at the prison. And she would visit the prisoners and bring them books and things. And she fell in love with one of the brothers, and he convinced her to help them escape from the jail. They steal a sleigh, and they're going through Butler County, and they practically run right into the sheriff's posse that's chasing them. The gunfight ensues. The two brothers are mortally wounded. She's wounded herself, and eventually she lives, they die. And she goes to jail and has a kind of sorrowful life afterwards here in Pittsburgh. But this scandal of the, love story and the escape just fascinates people all over the nation. And it's a story that's lived on as one of kind of Pittsburgh's favorite pieces of kind of lore and interest to this day. And the Police Historical Association came to own that sleigh. And when they transferred their collection to us, we now own it. So it's the first time it's ever been shown in an exhibition.
And I know that almost 90% of the pieces that are on display are like that. They've never been put on display until now. So why have so many of them not been featured at the museum before?
So people may not realize any museum in the country, and 10 times over for the Smithsonian, has many more objects in their collection that are ever on view. We only have about 10% of our collection out at any time. And this is for a variety of reasons. Space, obviously, but also just to preserve the objects. If you had clothing out for long periods of time, eventually it would shred and tear and the light would change the color and the tone of it. So for the objects' care and preservation, we also don't show them all the time. But that's what's so great about this exhibit. These are things that, for the most part, have not been seen ever.
Is there anything else that you want people to know about the Pittsburgh's Hidden History exhibit?
I think if you come, you'll find not only is it great stuff, but we tried to put it together in ways that would make you think about it and the connections. So the Shake It Up section has all the things you can shake: maracas, tambourines, salt shakers. But it also has things that really shook up life here in Pittsburgh, like a banner from the March on Washington. So it encourages you to think about the stories these things tell and the varied connections you can make to them.
And thank you so much for sharing more about the exhibit.
Oh, you too. Thanks for having me today.
Check out HeinzHistoryCenter.org to learn more about Pittsburgh's hidden history. We will also have that link for you in our show notes so that you are just a click away. Thanks for listening.
That is all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. If you want to play with that budget tool or see a picture of Sara Innamorato's new puppy, Lucy, go to our website. That's pittsburgh.citycast.fm. We will be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. We'll talk to you soon.
I love judging the pickle juice drinking contest. Like, it is absurd and unhinged.
Isn't that kind of obvious who wins a pickle juice drinking contest?
Not necessarily. Sometimes there's some breakouts, Like, you're just like, my money's on that guy.
There's nuance.
Someone just
nuance to pickle juice drinking.
It, and you're like, wow. I'm a fan of pickle juice. I would just drink pickle juice. I think that's great.